Hello, welcome to careervids.com. My name is Richard McMunn, and during this presentation I'm going to talk to you about interview technique and why it is so important to get it right. When people apply for jobs and they're preparing for an interview, they tend to focus on their responses to the interview questions and they neglect interview technique. One of the greatest ways to prepare for an interview is to actually carry out a mock interview, and I've done this time and time again in the past when preparing for interviews. What I do is I get a member of my family or a partner to sit down and ask me the interview questions that I believe I will get asked during the interview, and it just gets me in the mode of interview, because I know some people, when they come across to me and they say, look, can you help me prepare for my interview, I say to them, when was the last time you actually went to an interview? And they say, well, I haven't been for one for about 5 years. And then they go along to the interview without having actually sat down and given the opportunity to respond to some sample questions. If you do carry out a mock interview, then it will improve your confidence greatly. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go through 5 key areas and explain why I believe these are extremely important to your success. So the first one is that of your dress. So how you dress when you go along to the interview is important, and it's all part of interview technique. Now, if I was going along to an interview, I wouldn't dress like this. Yes, I've got a smart jacket on, but my shirt is relatively casual. I should be wearing a smart suit, a shirt and tie, make sure my shoes are clean, and because basically I want the organisation that I'm going along to for an interview for to look at me as a positive role model. Okay, so you need to say to yourself, what is the organisation like that I'm going for, and how would they expect me to dress? And I would almost guarantee that when you're going along to this kind of interview, you should dress smart. Now, what you don't want to do is look like you've just taken your suit, or if it's ladies, your formal outfit out of the wardrobe and it's really tight and you can't get into it. A little bit of pre-planning, guys, should go into this. You should try your suit a few days before you go, and if it needs to be altered, yes, get it altered, okay, so that it fits comfortable. You want to look like you wear this outfit all the time. That is very important. So think carefully about your dress. In terms of colours, some people say to me, Richard, what kind of colour should I wear? What kind of suit colour? And I just say, go for conservative colours, because that is safe. Okay, something like black, dark, brown, dark grey or navy blue is important. I've had people come to interviews before when I've been interviewing for jobs, and they've come in a white suit and a red tie. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what people want to wear, that is fine. Some people get into power dressing because it makes them look like they're a positive person. There's nothing wrong with that, but I would certainly say to you is to stick away from that and certainly go for the conservative approach. I've seen some people turn up before for interviews with ties on with cartoon characters. I would avoid that as well. And also for gents, the socks, okay? Go for dark coloured socks, don't go for white socks, and make sure your shoes are clean, okay? When I interview someone, I look at their shoes, okay? Because to me, it says a lot about a person. If they can't clean their shoes and look tidy at an interview, what are they going to be like when they're working for me? So dress sense is very, very important. You don't have to go out and buy an expensive suit. You know, you can get a suit in some supermarkets now for like 10 or 20 pounds, okay? If you haven't got a suit, you can't afford it, borrow one from a friend. Okay, so we get to the interview. Let's have a look at the second part of interview technique, which is actually entering the room. So when you actually enter the room, what kind of things are you going to be taking into consideration? Well, first of all, you need to knock on the door before you enter, okay? Unless they come out and get you. People say to me, do I need to shake their hands? Well, this depends on the organisation and the kind of interview that you're applying for. But I would normally shake the interviewer's hand, okay? And I would give a firm handshake, not aggressive, but a firm handshake, and I would look them in the eye. I would make eye contact with the person on the panel. If there's more than one, then yes, I will shake the hand of everybody within the room. Some interviews, especially for, say, public sector like emergency services, it may not be appropriate to actually shake the hand of the person who's interviewing you, but you'll have to certainly bear that in mind. So what I do is I knock on the door, I walk into the interview, I stand up straight and I say, hello, I'm Richard, nice to meet you, I'm here for the interview. So I'm being positive and enthusiastic, really good posture straight away. And then what I'll do is I'll walk along to the interview chair and I won't sit down until I'm invited to do so, and I think that is really important. I've seen people walk into the room and they sit down in the chair and then they slouch straight away, and it just doesn't give a really good, positive first impression. Somebody will form an opinion of you when you walk into an interview room within 7 or 8 seconds. They will form an opinion of you. And I certainly know that some employers will have a good idea before you even talk about whether they like you or not. Okay, so do bear that in mind. Walk into a room, sit next to a chair, wait to be invited to sit down. When you do sit down in the interview chair, make sure you sit up straight. Okay, you don't need to be military or regimented, but sit up straight, palms of your hands on top of your knees. Now, when I speak, I like to use my hands, as you've probably already noticed. I believe that's a good thing for me, but I don't overdo it. And if I do go to interview, I try and keep them on top of my knees. I'll use them a little bit to express myself, but generally keep them on top of my knees. So I will adjust myself after responding to every question. Okay, that's important. So we've entered the room, we've actually sat in the chair, and we're speaking to the panel. So when you're responding to the interview questions, do you think you should just look at the person who's asking you the question, or do you think you should actually look at everybody who's on the panel? So, and this all comes back again to sitting in the chair. So when you sit in the chair, you need to position yourself that you can actually see everybody there, okay? So you can look at them all and use proper eye contact. My response to that is that when they're asking the questions, you should answer them. Start off by looking at the person who's asked you the question and then involve everybody else. If there's 2 or 3 on the panel, then respond to them myself. So if you were to say to me, okay, tell us a little bit about yourself, I will respond, I'll go, well, my name's Richard, I'm 40 years of age, and then I'll start involving the other people. I'm 40 years of age, I have a lot of experience, I've been working in the fire service, I've run my own business, and you can see that I am looking at everybody else sat on the interview panel. That is really good interview technique. I see some people who come and sit in the chair, and when they respond to the questions, they're looking down at the floor. That is very poor interview technique. Okay, yes, of course you're going to be shy and nervous, but what you should do is be confident and look at the people. Okay, next one, responding to the questions. So if you bear with me while I just write this down. Responding to cues, that's the questions. So when you get asked a question, you need to obviously respond to it in a positive manner. It goes without saying. But there are 2 different types of interview question. The first one is like a motivational question, questions about you as an individual, what you are like as a person, the kind of experiences that you've had. And there are also situational interview questions, where the panel will say to you, can you give us an example of where you've done X, Y, and Z? Can you give us an example of where you've worked as part of a team? Can you give us an example of where you've worked in a pressurised environment? Can you give us an example of where you've gone above and beyond the call of duty? Now, when you're responding to these kind of questions, you should use what is called the STAR method, S-T-A-R. So what I do is I formulate my predicted responses to the questions before I go to the interview using the STAR method. I will start off by explaining what the situation was that I was involved in. I will then move on to the task. What was the task that I had to do? I will then explain what the action is. My action and the action of others was X, Y, and Z. And then finally, I will explain what the result was following my actions. And I always make sure that the result is positive following my actions. Okay? If I follow the STAR method, then that makes sure that I give them everything that they want. It means that I'm using effective communication because my responses are they're organised basically, so you know they're in sync, and I'm providing evidence, which is what the interviewer is looking for. Okay, so finally, final questions for the panel. Now we all get this. Final questions. We get it at an interview. You've got to the end. It's gone good. You're feeling good about yourself, and they say, okay, have you got any questions for the panel? That can be quite difficult. I usually judge it based on how the interview has gone. If it's been really positive, I sometimes say, no, I've got no questions for you. I've really enjoyed the interview and you've answered everything that I've wanted to know anyway. Okay, that is fine. You don't have to ask questions. I've known people who've gone to interviews and at the end they've asked 6, 7 questions. Now, if I was interviewing you and you were asking me 7 questions at the end, I would be thinking, I've got other people to interview. I need to assess you. You know, get a move on. You know, you don't have to ask 7 or 8 questions at the end of the interview. At the most, Unless it's a really technical job, I would just ask two or three maximum, but generally 2 questions. What kind of questions should you ask? Well, that is a difficult one. Again, it depends on the role. Certainly avoid questions that are based around sick pay, leave, paternity or maternity pay or leave. You know, you should know them before you go. Also avoid questions like, I've got a holiday coming up in 3 weeks' time. If I'm successful, I'll need time off for that. Is that okay? Somebody said that to me before during an interview, and I'm thinking, oh, you shouldn't have said that. That is not the right thing to say. So avoid those kind of questions. I think good questions to ask are things like, I've really enjoyed today. Whilst I'm waiting to find out if I'm successful or not, is there any company literature or brochures that I can read to improve my knowledge of the company? That is a great question because it shows that you're really keen and enthusiastic. Another good question is, I know I don't know if I'm successful or not yet, but if I am successful, how long will it be before I can start? That kind of thing. So it's showing that you are positive. Avoid questions that are basically trying to impress the panel with your technical ability, okay? Because I've known people to get caught out because the panel could come back with another question if you ask them a technical one, and it can catch you out, and you certainly don't want to do that. In respect of responding to the interview questions, which I wanted to mention before, if you don't know something or don't know the response to an interview question, it's okay to say, I'm really sorry, I don't know that, but I'll come back to you at a later date. Make sure you do come back to them. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. A number of important tips based around interview technique. If you go along to www.careervids.com, I've provided loads more free videos and articles to help you get the job of your dreams. Thank you very much for watching.